Directors' duties. All directors have three principal legal duties, which are often referred to interchangeably as fiduciary obligations. 1. To direct the management of the business and affairs of the company. This is from Section 60B of the Trinidad and Tobago Companies Act, Chapter 8101. 2. To act honestly and in good faith with a view to the best interests of the company. This from Section 99(1)(a) of the Trinidad and Tobago Companies Act, Chapter 8101. And 3. To exercise the care, diligence, and skill of a reasonably prudent person, from Section 99(1)(b) of the Trinidad and Tobago Companies Act, Chapter 8101. The duty of care is an obligation imposed on the board that the directors act on and take decisions on a fully informed basis and with due diligence. Acting with due diligence means that directors need to apply the skills they reasonably can be expected to possess based on their collective experience, knowledge, skills, and qualifications. The duty of care is embodied in law, Section 99(1)(b) of the Companies Act, Chapter 8101, and frequently also in the company's articles, bylaws, and board charter. The bylaws, charter, or other founding and guiding documents describe the information to which the board has a right. The duty of loyalty means that directors act exclusively in the interest of the company. In deciding what is in the best interest of the company, the law specifies that they are to consider the interests of the company's employees in general as well as its shareholders and do not allow their personal or any other singular interests to prevail. Further, this duty is in relation to the degree of care, diligence, and skill that a company director is required to exercise in order not to be considered to have undertaken their legitimate duties negligently. A director need not be an expert. They only need to display the skills they can reasonably be expected to possess. A breach of any of these duties exposes the individual director as well as the board to liability. The liability of a board or of individual directors would have to be determined by a court of law. In keeping with their duty of care, directors should always evaluate the demand on their time before allowing themselves to be considered for an appointment. Time considerations include time for board meetings and the associated preparation, time for strategy retreats, travel, reading, attendance at ad hoc and committee meetings. According to corporate governance experts, directors should ideally spend between 1 to 4 days per month for a single non-executive director position. For members of the audit committee, this time commitment can be even greater. The board has the right to all information about the company and must have access to high-quality, unbiased information required for decision-making, including independent professional advice paid for by the company. It is good practice for the board to specify the information that they would like to have presented by management instead of just letting the CEO decide what is shared with the board. Required information usually relates to answering these questions. Are the results that the board directed management to achieve for the owners being achieved? To what extent is the management's strategy working? What are the risks that can endanger achievement of results? And to what extent are the operations compliant with regulations set by the board? The board operates as a collective and communicates its decisions to management with one voice. However, all directors need to decide for themselves, carefully taking into consideration all available information when they vote on board decisions. That is, directors are expected to exercise independent judgment, but the board decides as one. Board procedures. Board meetings. The board must meet with sufficient frequency to ensure that business at hand is completed at the expected quality level and with sufficient time. Too few board meetings means work is not being done or the board does not understand its role. Too many board meetings could mean that the board is overly involved in management and may also stem from a misunderstanding of the role of the board. In line with best practice, 6 to 10 meetings are likely to be appropriate per year. At a minimum, 4 board meetings per year, with a maximum interval of 4 months between meetings is possible. More than monthly meetings should be considered excessive. Duration. The duration of meetings should be a reflection of the issues requiring board consideration. Ideally, meetings should last no more than 4 hours. Separate, dedicated meetings can be held for lengthy strategic discussions, example, strategic retreats. The board agenda determines the issues under discussion and is the responsibility of the chairman. It is generally put together by the chairman and the corporate secretary with input from the CEO. Any director can request that the chairman include a matter on the board agenda. It is the chairman's obligation to offer directors the opportunity to suggest items which cannot be reasonably denied. In the end, it is each director's responsibility to ensure that the right matters are tabled. Standard agenda items include approval of minutes of last meeting, formal approval of matters requiring limited discussion, executives' reports, company performance, CEO financial performance, CFO unbudgeted capital expenditure, request for approval, committee reports, and business plan committee review. In order that the peaks and troughs of a board's business are kept within reasonable limits, many boards develop an agenda annual calendar. This allows specific issues to be allocated sufficient time throughout the year's meetings. Certain items will need to be fixed in association with the financial reporting cycle, but other topics are less time-specific and can be included on the board agendas when there are fewer items to discuss. A typical agenda for an annual board agenda should include standing items, which include approve minutes of previous meetings, approve unbudgeted capital expenditures, review actual versus budgeted financial results, and approve board committee reports. In February, 1-year assessment, dividend declaration, growth strategy discussion and strategy review. March, review financial performance versus competitors. April, authorization of foundation contribution and business plan review for the next financial year. June, review or approve strategic plan, business unit number 1 strategy review, review of chairman's personal objectives, dividend declaration, annual meeting resolutions, set meeting schedule for next calendar year, litigation review. September, annual organization matters, committees, officer elections. Dividend declaration, annual share owners meeting, review financial performance versus competitors, and appoint external auditors. In October, strategic plan review. December, approve annual budget, management development update, dividend declaration, and strategy review. Director induction involves introducing new directors to the people with whom they will be working and explaining how the board operates. It involves building trust, rapport, and credibility amongst directors. New board members need to receive sufficient training and background information to function appropriately. Preparing a board member for effective board contribution is referred to as induction training. The chairman is responsible for ensuring induction takes place. The rigor and formality of the induction should reflect the size and complexity of the enterprise. New board members should have the ability to interview executives, staff, and key functions such as the internal and external audit at their discretion and in the absence of management. Essential information before the first board meeting that all directors should receive include on business operations, structure of the organization, including subsidiaries and joint venture arrangements, as well as management structure. Current strategic and/or business plan, market analysis and budgets, including risk assessment, key strategies and performance indicators. latest annual report and accounts, summary of insurance policies, including directors' and officers' liability insurance, details of any major litigation, both current and potential, undertaken by the company or against the company, and treasury issues, funding position, and dividend policy. On board policies, procedures, and protocols, memorandum and articles of incorporation, bylaws and/or constitution, minutes of the last 6 board meetings, board's meeting schedule and board committee meeting schedule, all board policies and procedures, including schedule of matters reserved for the board, access to independent professional advice, procedures for meetings and communications between board and management, brief biographical and contact details of directors, company secretaries, and key executives, and board charter and details of board subcommittees and their terms of reference. On directors' duties and activities, outline of directors' duties, company procedures regarding director share dealings and the disclosure of price-sensitive information, disclosure requirements and procedures, protocol procedures and dress code for board meetings, general meetings, formal dinners, staff social events and site visits, and the policy on directors' expenses and method of reimbursement. Evaluations of the board's and company's governance practices are typically considered a first step to improving governance. Evaluations can be self-evaluations or externally assisted. An evaluation should lead to a governance improvement plan which is implemented under board supervision. Evaluations must be used for 2 specific reasons: to assess performance and to ensure that director skill sets bolster corporate strategic objectives and guard against possible risks. A typical evaluation process is led by the chairman, but frequently outside experts provide assistance. A plan for the formal evaluation of the board's governance practices, either self-evaluation or assisted evaluation, should be an item on the board agenda. The results should be discussed and a plan to remedy defects put in place. An evaluation should have clear terms of reference so as to include the board, individual director performance, committees, the CEO and chairman in the process. The terms of reference should also state the reason why the evaluation is being undertaken, for example, identification of board weaknesses and providing opportunities to take action and improve itself, or assessing the value of the board to the company and the efficiency of its internal functioning. Characteristics of successful evaluations include: the purpose, objectives, process, and outcomes have been fully explained and discussed with all concerned parties. Strict confidentiality is maintained at all times. The chairman and the CEO play a key role in developing and approving the process. Regular annual review. Benchmarks of board, committee, executive, and company effectiveness should be used as performance indicators. A written format that is discussed by all concerned parties. The chairman should provide the full board with a report, and the process itself should be evaluated for improvements to be undertaken in the following year.